Good morning. Okay, I have literally run here because I don't know about you, but sometimes I just get distracted by sparkly things, and hence why I'm a few minutes late. I usually wait for community to jump on board, but I'm not going to do that today. I'm just going to get stuck in because I'm super grateful. Some really, really awesome questions have been sent this way over the last few days. Also, some really relevant topics shared on different forums by living men and women that I really, really respect. So let's get stuck in. All right. Now, I'm not that great at retaining dates and, the numbers of acts and legislation, etc. So I have written some notes. How are you, by the way? How are you? Last week, I was wearing a super cute headband that my mum made, and she's made me another one. Super cute. She knows me well if you see what's on my headband. Alrighty. So, the first question we're going to tackle is about councils. I probably see hundreds of questions, topics, shares, memes, stories about council's authority every week. And so, thing is, we only know what we know till we know something more. And each week, there are new souls being awakened to certain things. So that's why it may seem to the rest of us who have been here a long time that we're repeating ourselves. But you know what? We've got to use our own critical thinking, and we all come to things at different times, and we're all at different rungs on the wisdom, education, spiritual ladder. So we need to be patient with that. Hence why I'm diving into this question yet again. So a lovely lady asked me, who have council's formal authority to send rate notices and infringements, and what gives them the authority to create bylaws? Well, so everything I'm going to say is from the perspective of the statutory system first. Okay, so please don't write comments attacking me about that. I'm doing it for a reason. So sometimes we need to know the constructed rules to know how to work and maneuver around them, if that makes sense. Alrighty, so some of you will know this already, that the formal authority of local councils in Australia, such as city, shire, regional councils, to send rate notices, issue infringements, create laws, local laws, come from state and territory legislation, not from the Constitution of the Commonwealth. And if anyone feels like they want to dive into which constitution we even can look at, then please feel free to add your 10 cents worth about that. So, the source of council authority is this, as far as legislation goes, is the state and territory acts that have been passed through Parliament. So councils are statutory corporations created under legislation. Each Australian state and territory has its own local government act. So there isn't one local government act federally for all of Australia, right? For example, and this is why I have to write notes because I don't like retaining numbers. New South Wales is the Local Government Act 1993. Victoria, the Local Government Act 2020. Queensland, the Local Government Act 2009. South Australia is the Local Government Act 1999, and Western Australia, the Local Government Act 1995. I have a quick question that someone may know the answer to. So before those acts came into being, from my memory, councils already existed, right? So councils were sending rate notices, creating their own bylaws, etc., long before those acts were passed. So what was giving them the authority before then? Would it be possible that if any rates were paid previous to that date, were they not fraudulent? What path of remedy could we go about that? That just came to my mind. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Anyway, so the acts that I just mentioned, though, at this present moment in time, give councils the power to levy rates and charges, create local laws, right, or ordinances, issue fines and penalties for breaching of those local laws, and enter into contracts, operate services, and enforce planning schemes. But they are a corporate entity. They're not a level of government. So let's have a look at the bylaws. So councils may make local laws about specific matters to their region, such as to do with animals, waste, use of public space, signage, parking, business licensing. Now, that one there is a curly one, because why would councils have anything to do with business licensing? Don't businesses come under ASIC? Isn't that under federal tax laws, federal business registration? So again, it kind of opens up another can of worms, something to think about. However, these bylaws that the council make must be made within the powers delegated by the relevant state act. They must not conflict with state or Commonwealth law, hence what I just said about business registration. And they are subject to public consultation and ministerial oversight. Now, are they? I don't know. I've done a video months ago about the view tax on the Gold Coast. I'm pretty sure that none of the public would be citing and promoting the view tax. But anyway, so as you know, councils can issue rates based on land valuation data. Now, this is usually provided by a state valuer general. Now, I believe that would be a conflict of interest, valuing the land, the property. But anyway, they issue penalty notices, infringements for breaches of local laws, and debt collection proceedings if unpaid. Now, as far as they're concerned, this is what the council believes their limitations on power are. So councils do not have inherent legislative power like a state parliament, but the loophole that they keep using is saying that the Local Council Act has given them that authority. All their power is delegated. It is not sovereign. Their decisions can be challenged in court if they act outside their legislative scope, they breach procedural fairness or due process, or their local law contradicts higher law. And I think, again, if you are dealing with some issues with the council, I actually think that would be the path to go down, and have a look at state law and federal law and see if those laws supersede what the council local bylaws are saying you're in breach of. I think that's really, really important. Now, from a constitutional and lawful challenge perspective, many sovereign, and again, I use the word sovereign when it comes to these things. I was at Love Fest on Saturday in Byron. It was awesome, really great to connect with so many community. And discussion was centered around the words sovereignty and sovereignty. And I basically, these are just my own humble thoughts. And if you can have a look at the video that I've shared several months ago on this channel regarding the difference between sovereignty and sovereignty, and why I choose for myself, being a white woman of Caucasian, Irish, Celtic, Scottish descent. I think it's disrespectful for me to use the word sovereign while I'm standing on this country, right? While I'm on this country, and if you're watching elsewhere, I am sitting on country in Queensland and in Australia. So I believe the only sovereignty that I'm willing to acknowledge is that of the first men and women of this country. That's where true tribal law sovereignty comes into play, but they're just my humble thoughts. Okay, so segue to that. All right, and I'm sure some people will get feisty me saying that. Be well. All right, so local councils are not valid governments under the Commonwealth Constitution. They are administrative bodies, not parliaments, and cannot make binding law, right? So the 1999 referendum, in which Australians voted against recognising local governments in the Constitution, reinforces their lack of standing. They seem to believe that they're given the authority from the Local Council Act, but really the specific laws, the local laws, they're not binding. And I believe that if we use our noggins and critical thinking, we can actually reverse engineer and get through those loopholes. So just something to think about. So their claims, such as rates, fines, they lack validity. They lack valid authority unless consented to by contract. Now, I think the only contract that we go into when purchasing a property is the bill of sale contract with the seller. And then under the Land Titles Office and the Torrens title system, under state legislation, they've created a process that as soon as that bill of sale comes through, the new owner is then put on the land title, which so that new ownership, and is it really ownership? Let's go down that rabbit hole another day, is then the land title holder registration is then registered with the state land title office. And then they inform the local council. So besides that original sale contract, I'm a bit confused as to what other contracts that I've given authority to the council for. Do you know what I'm saying? So from that lens, you might challenge a council's enforcement's power by demanding proof of lawful authority to issue demands to you as a man or woman, rebut the presumption that you are liable under their local laws. We could question the existence of a valid contract or delegation. And we could also, use the processes of filing lawful notices or affidavits. If we did that process, we'd have to make sure that we really dot our I's, cross our T's, and follow that through all the way to the end. I would definitely probably speak to someone like Zev at Warrior at Law to get guidance on that one. In practice, courts will usually uphold the authority of councils as long as they act within the enabling legislation. So remedies outside that system require really strong standing, right? You really need to consider private jurisdiction tools like trusts, having the operations and the activities and the projects under a PMA. And you do need to look at contract rebuttals all the way along. And look, there's some amazing members in the community that I'm a part of that have had some really great wins doing all of that. You've just got to make sure you don't drop the ball and that you stick to the details. Okay, so again, it's on a case-by-case basis. I'm not sharing any advice. I'm just sharing the topics of discussion for us to explore it further. So there are some really wise counsel who follow these videos. Please weigh in. Please share in the comments section your thoughts about that. I would really value it. Okay, we're going to switch it up a little bit. So there is an amazing unincorporated association called Luminous Hearts. Luminous Hearts does amazing work regarding plant-based wellness, regarding supporting especially women, and advocating for ways that they can provide for their family. They are also huge advocates of really looking into the rabbit holes of what's really going on in the world. And one of the founding members of Luminous Hearts, who I'm so honoured to have as such a good friend in my life, and we work closely when it comes to plant-based wellness, is Victoria. And Victoria shared a topic this morning regarding what happens to the placenta and cord in hospital after a baby is born. So I'm going to try not to get off on too many tangents here. This is a very sensitive issue, but she shared about it this morning and it brought up a lot of conversation and a lot of questions. So there's no right and wrong here. It's not black and white. I'm just sharing to unpack this situation because there's a lot of darkness in the world, not just at the moment. It's been going on for a very long time. You know, Zev, who I work with, he will say that the system isn't broken. It was built this way on purpose for many, many dark activity. So I'm all about what we can do, not what we can't do. So I want to shed some light of knowledge on this topic, and then it can sit with you. You can let the layers land. What feels right to you might not feel right to someone else. But I think we don't want to be naive, and we can't sit in the world today, especially if we have children and we care about our children and our children's children. We can't sit naive wearing rose-tinted glasses. But I'm also all about fact and data, right? So I'm just sharing this information so we can have a well-rounded knowledge base to make our own self-determined decisions. So Victoria shared a letter today, and this letter was basically based on if someone has, and I'm sorry if this is triggering for you, if someone has had a stillbirth, right, a stillborn baby, and their soul did not come earthside. I'm sitting with you in that if you feel that. The Australian government offers like a benefit, right? Now remember, you can choose if you want to receive the benefits of that public system or not. I usually do not choose that. But anyway, so let's have a look at this letter. It's from the Australian government. And okay, so dear Miss Ladida, thank you for your correspondence of the 9th of June 2025 to the Minister of Government Services, Senator the Honorary Katie Gallagher, about the eligibility criteria for stillborn baby payment. I have been asked to respond on the Minister's behalf. The stillborn baby payment is a one-off, non-taxable payment that provides financial assistance with the extra costs associated with a stillborn baby. Services Australia, they call themselves the agency, is responsible for the administration of stillborn baby payment and for making determinations for payment of claims on behalf of the Department of Social Services. Now, this is the next paragraph is the piece that Victoria was highlighting this morning. The eligibility criteria for stillborn baby payment, it does not exclude circumstances where the stillborn was due to a medical termination, including an intentional abortion, provided the child has been certified by a qualified medical practitioner as having been delivered and the definition of a stillborn child is met. Section 3 of the new tax system Family Assistance Act 1999 defines a stillborn child as a child who weighs at least 400 grams at delivery or of whose period of gestation was at least 20 weeks and who has not breathed since delivery and whose heart has not beaten since delivery. Again, I'm just holding space for a moment for anyone who needs to breathe into that definition. This definition aligns with that used by the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare and the legislated definition of all states and territories registry birth deaths and marriages. So the birth mother or partner may be eligible for stillborn baby payment if they claim the payment within 52 weeks of the stillbirth, provided they would have been the primary carer. And it goes on. Okay, so on the surface of it, it looks like just another government benefit that by contracting in with the system, in exchange, you get the benefit of that in that really sad moment in one's life. So on the surface, that is what it looks like. Okay. Now, Victoria just shared a point of view this morning and she said, so here is the proof. And she highlighted that paragraph that I highlighted to you. How disgusting is it that that's the world we live in? A viable child can be aborted for money. If you don't understand why, I'll tell you. Victoria says, that child is sold for tens of thousands of dollars for stem cells to make rich and famous people look young, feel invincible. It's pure evil. Our elites have found a way to legally sacrifice innocent children. When are people going to stand up against the evil taking over the world we live in? Now, she got a mixed bag of comments about this topic, right? Some were really listening into what she was saying. Others were saying FFS, right? For freak's sake, you're diving down the wrong rabbit hole here. And this is simply an exchange of receiving a government benefit in exchange for the costs involved for that situation in a family's life. Now, I'm actually sitting on the fence. I'm actually really thinking, well, there's two ways to look at it. And there are men and women in our community where this has happened in the last few years, and I really want to honor them. And at that time, it can be really confusing, right? And I do know one family who they had to go through this, and several weeks later, they received a letter from Services Australia to say, oh, hey, you're eligible for this. And they weren't really sure what to think about it. So what happens to the placenta and cord in hospital if it's a hospital birth after the baby is born? In many hospitals, after a baby is born, the placenta and umbilical cord are considered medical waste unless you've made a prior arrangement for something else to happen. So the standard practice, so they say in legislation, is that it is treated as biomedical waste. So the placenta is delivered after the cord is being clamped, and the placenta is examined to make sure that nothing has been left behind and that it's healthy. Then the cord and the placenta are placed into a biohazard container where they are sent for incineration or processed by medical waste disposal companies. So sometimes if there's been a medical reason in the birth experience, it will be sent to pathology for further examination. But after testing, it's disposed of by the hospital unless you have made prior arrangements. So if you request that, you have every right to request the placenta and cord if you want to keep them for personal, cultural, ceremonial reasons. You may want to delay cord cutting, right? You might want to have a lotus birth. Or you may want to bank or donate the cord blood. Okay? Pay it forward. However, many hospitals in Australia anyway require you to sign a release form acknowledging that you're taking it as non-waste. And that also means that if it's not coming to you, that wherever it's going, the parent does have to sign something. As far as I'm aware, if anyone can I like the data. If you can prove it to me, he who makes claim bears burden of proof. If you can prove to me otherwise, please share that with me. Because basically, besides cord blood banking, which you can definitely give permission for that to happen, I was unaware of anything else. So basically, what the letter is stating is that a mother who medically terminates a pregnancy under lawful conditions after 20 weeks and delivers a non-living infant can be eligible for the stillborn payment, as well as if it naturally occurred. That's what the letter is actually saying. Okay? So this is just really important that before 20 weeks, it's regarded as an abortion. After 20 weeks, it's regarded as a stillborn birth, but it's medically terminated for a medical reason. Okay? So this payment exists to support families with burial costs or trauma support, and it's not payment for a baby in a transactional or commodified sense. Now, can stem cells be collected without consent? Apparently, no. I use the word apparently because, I don't know everything. I'm just sharing thoughts by several people who've contacted me this morning in the community who want to dive down this rabbit hole further. Okay, so no. Legally and ethically, any collection of cord blood, placenta, fetal tissue, or stem cells for use in medical research or industry requires informed consent from the mother or parents if both are involved. In Australia, Human Tissues Act across each state require written consent for donation of human tissue for research or therapeutic purposes. Now, also, I just want to add, I'm all about facts. Usually, by the time a couple or a mother has applied for that benefit, right, the cord and the placenta, and I say this with respect, are long gone in the biohazard waste. So if you believe that it's a financial transaction, it's long gone. And you get to choose whether you partake in that benefit of those dollars within 52 weeks of the stillbirth happening. I just want to say that out loud because I'm using my critical thinking hat right now. I'm not saying that evil doesn't happen in the world, because it does, right? But I'm just unpacking everything. So, example of this, the New South Wales Human Tissue Act 1983 and the Queensland Transplantation and Anatomy Act 1979. So no, they cannot legally harvest and use a baby's cells or organs without consent. Though, as always, what happens in practice is separate from what's written in law and what actually happens in the real world. And I just want to share that. So why do hospitals cut the cord early? Hospital birth protocols often include early cord clamping due to past beliefs about reducing jaundice or bleeding, but these are far outdated, right? Medically, scientifically, that's been outdated, but it still occurs. And also need to move baby quickly for care, especially in intervention-heavy births. And also efficiency. You're on a production line of babies born that day in the operating theatre maybe, or in the midwifery room. So if no cord blood banking has been arranged, the cord and placenta are discarded as medical waste, or in some cases, with the mother's consent, they may be donated to medical research or cosmetic pharmaceutical labs. But again, and this is what I asked Victoria this morning, this needs to be done with medical consent. Now, is there evidence of non-consensual harvesting? There have been historical concerns and whistleblower claims in various countries, especially the ones I've read are in the US, that fetal tissue or newborn blood products are sometimes obtained without fully informed consent, particularly from abortion clinics with research ties, hospital births where consent language is buried in broad paperwork, and minority or disadvantaged populations. However, no official Australian injury or inquiry has confirmed large-scale non-consensual harvesting of placenta or baby tissue for sale. That said, I think the concern is valid and worth asking. Read all the agreements of the hospital. If you know which hospital that you're planning to give birth in, normally a stillborn, it happens within minutes, right? The decisions are very quick. When you're going to have time to look at any agreements, any contracts, right? So, what can we do in general to look after this situation when it comes to our own bodily autonomy, right? So, before you get to 20 weeks, draw up a birth plan. As we know, I'm a mum of two. Birth plans don't always go to plan, right? But this, I always say, let's focus on what we can do, not what we can't do. So, number one, write in your birth plan, I do not consent to use, transfer, donation, or research use of the placenta, umbilical cord, or any associated tissue organs from my baby or body. I request full custody of the placenta post-delivery. Number two, delay the cord clamping. Ask for a delayed clamping, right? At least 3 to 5 minutes. And in this moment of anguish, how are you even going to think this, right? But delayed cord clamping at least 3 to 5 minutes after the pulse has stopped. It supports and if you're having a baby and it's a beautiful, healthy baby and you're able to bring that baby home again, though, in your birth plan, you want to support the baby's health and limit available cord blood for extraction. Number three, request the placenta. Under common law and policy, the placenta is your biological property. Hospitals must release it to you if you ask and complete the form. But again, look at all the fine print in the form. If you're in these situations and you want Zevit Warrior Law to have a look at these forms, these agreements, by all means, send them through. More than happy to help you. So look, my final thought on this topic, and I think there's a few out there who didn't expect this topic today, but it was really important. And it obviously came up in our realm today for a reason. Then, even if there's just one living woman or man out there who needed to hear this today, I felt I needed to share it. So, final thoughts. Yes, it is a serious emotional topic. There are reasons that we need to stay vigilant, ask questions, assert our rights, but also reason to scrutinize claims and verify before drawing conclusions. Use your critical thinking. And look, the medical system has many grey areas, especially where profit and consent intersect, but not everything shared online is lawful proof or systematic conspiracy. So, yes. Now, before I go, someone very special to me sent me a gem of a question. So I'm just going to bring that question up. We might not have the answer today. It's a pretty big one. I think it's a question that during different dispensations of time in human history has been asked over and over and over as a society, as communities, as tribes, but also on an individual level while lying underneath the stars or falling asleep at night. But I was asked this morning, who are you? What makes you feel and think like this? What makes one feel, okay, this is me? And do we ever know who we truly are? It's a big one. And for those who made it through the thick of dealing with those topics around council and stillborn stem cells, I just want to think about who we are, what we are. Now, if you're talking about the legal, lawful side of things, then Zevet Warrior Law has the answer to that. If you've been part of the Remedy with Realism workshop, he shares about who we are and what we are, right? Whether we're a person, whether we're a living man or woman. But I think the question I was asked this morning is actually beyond our physical meat suit, right? I think the question was more about our purpose. Why are we here? Who am I? And I think the closest we will get to sitting with who we really are and having comprehension about who we really are is being in touch with where we're from. So everything is energy, right? I am moving. This is my life force living energy. You know, the same energy is like a water wheel. Water is energy, right? You know, the same energy that started a fire 50 years ago, right? That fire became heat, which became warmth in someone's body, right? That energy continues on and on and on. That same energy of that fire lit 50 years ago or 5,000 years ago is sitting in me. It's in the keratin of my hair. It's in the movement of my muscles, in my skin. It's in the bird over there. It's in little Haken sitting in the sun right now. Everything is energy. So I think the reason why most are lost and they are confused about who they intrinsically are is because they have lost contact with where they're from. They have lost contact with sitting still and feeling that energy around them and actually touching that energy. Like most, especially if you live in a city, how often are you barefoot? You might be barefoot in bed and in the shower. And then they go they put slippers on. And then they walk outside and put boots on. And then they go down to the beach and they have thongs on. Now I am a shoe wearer. I wear shoes, but not all the time. And again, that loss of connection to the ground under us, to sitting by a brook and or a creek and just letting the water wash over our feet, to occasionally, you know, sleeping under the stars instead of under a roof, instead of standing on concrete platforms, which most of us do all day in the office, in a shopping centre, on the pathway. Step to the left a little bit. If there's a grass verge, start walking on the grass verge instead of the concrete and sit with the stillness. Then I think we can really, truly get as close as we could with who we really are. And it comes back to your purpose, your mission, your vision, and your legacy. Until you can really sit with and map out what your true purpose is, what your vision is, and then when you reach your vision, reverse engineer that and work backwards to the present point. How am I going to get from this present point to that vision? We're so used to saying, oh, it'll happen tomorrow. Well, I know for one, we don't know when tomorrow is. We don't know if we'll make it to tomorrow. So going back to the beautiful question that I was asked this morning, who are we? We are not this meat suit. We are not who we are on the outside. We are the access points to talking to the universal power, to spirit, and make sure you listen. Pay attention, listen. Avoidance will only create claustrophobia to the powers of the universe. Your abundant channels will close when you are in avoidance. Deal with things. As soon as you deal with something, channels of abundance will open up. And who am I? I believe that I am a conduit of energy to be able to use every movement forward as something that is contributing to do no harm, cause no loss. And if that's the only thing I can do between now and the day that I'm no longer in this meat suit, and if that's how I identify as who I am pretty satisfied with that. Anyway, as usual, please send in your topics, your questions. If you want to unpack more about that council topic, if you are going through any issues with council, and if you do not agree with anything that's come out of my mouth today, please share it in the comments. A different perspective. There is more than one way to skin a cat. If you do fully align with what I've said today, please share in the comments, right? Because there is more to unpack here. I appreciate you. And till next time, be well.